back now at 8:30. One of the things that tells you something about a country is its folk music. That being the case, we're telling you something about Australia right now with the help of the Mucky Duck Bush Band. Jane and I were doing that a little bit earlier, but we got tired. We're going to be, welcome back to Perth, where we are atop Kings Park and looking over the Swan River as the sun is gently setting here on the west coast of Australia. It's been a lovely time on our first morning of a very special week here in Perth. We're going to be hearing a little bit more from the Mucky Ducks before we get off the air this morning. We're also going to be talking with a Perthian native who has settled down in New York now. That is cartoonist Paul Rigby. He, by the way, is also president of the International Association of Limp Fallers. You got to stay tuned to figure out what that is. Jane?
And Aaron Goodlett will be with us in this half hour. Now, Aaron Goodlett is just he's a regular paper boy here in Perth, but he's managed to become a favorite of the foreign media, including us, here in Perth, covering the America's Cup, and we'll show you in this half hour why he became a favorite. Also, novelist Elizabeth Jolly will explain why she has chosen, British writer, to live in Australia.
Let's move on up to New York, where Tennessee native John Palmer has chosen to live in New York and handle our chores at the news desk. John, we do miss you.
Thank you, Brian, and I might say it's a little lonely here in Studio 3B in New York this morning. In the news, as we have been reporting, the group known as Islamic Jihad this morning threatened to kill all American hostages in Lebanon if the United States launches an attack on any Middle East country. The extremist group also said no American would be released as long as Muslims are being held in foreign jails. The communique was accompanied by a picture of Terry Anderson, the American bureau chief who was kidnapped in Beirut in 1985. Elsewhere in Lebanon, Amal Shiite militia leader Nabi Berri says that his organization is working for the release of Anglican envoy Terry Waite. Berry says that Waite is probably being held against his will. Waite disappeared 13 days ago when he left to negotiate for the release of 2 American hostages. The United States today is demanding that Iran release American journalist Gerald Seeb. Seeb was arrested Saturday in Tehran. He is being accused of spying for Israel. Millions of Filipinos today cast ballots on a new constitution. President Aquino promised the new constitution would bring stability and economic recovery to the Philippines. She also predicted that the new constitution would be overwhelmingly approved by the people. The new charter sharply reduces the power of the presidency while increasing the power of the courts. The election is being seen as a vote of confidence for President Aquino. In Hawaii, deposed Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos this morning accused Mrs. Aquino of buying votes in the election. Marcos said Mrs. Aquino paid about $5 each to government workers to vote yes on the Constitution. Well, Puxatawny Phil, the nation's official groundhog, saw his shadow this morning when he emerged from his snowy hilltop home in Pennsylvania. That means there will be 6 more weeks of winter at least. 1,000 people gathered to watch the groundhog's annual outing. The Stars and Stripes is only 1 win this morning away from bringing the America's Cup back home to the United States. The American yacht beat the Australian Kookaburra 3 this morning by a comfortable 1 minute 46 seconds. The Stars and Stripes is now leading the best-of-7 series 3-0. Hollywood, California, a state of mind as much as it is a part of Los Angeles, begins its 2nd century today. On Sunday, scores of celebrities gathered to kick off a year-long anniversary celebration. Among the stars, Bob Hope, Gene Autry, and Jimmy Stewart put movie memorabilia in a time capsule. Earlier, Robert Wagner dedicated a star on the Walk of Fame for his late wife, Natalie Wood. Looking ahead now, here's some of the stories we'll be following today. The House begins hearings on President Reagan's recommendations for a federal employee pay raise. That's it from this news desk at 8:35. Now here's Brian.
All right, John, thank you. We're catching the tail end of what constitutes rush hour here on the west coast of Australia. Some of the folks coming back from the races over in Fremantle. It's a lovely sunset here in Perth. We're continuing to enjoy it. Willard Scott's going to have a check of the weather in just a moment and talk something over with some sheep. Then we'll talk with Paul Rigby after this.
It's the way we set a style, the way we set things right. It's the way we coax a smile, the way we say goodnight. Drinking our kind of coffee, good to the last drop, yeah. Only Maxwell House fresh flavor, tastes like coffee made our way. Only Maxwell
Tonight, serve stovetop instead of
Boil potatoes, please Mom, don't make those. Give us our stovetop stuffing each and every night.
Noodles and rices just aren't nice as having our stovetop stuffing each and every night.
Why make the usual when you can make it the great taste they all love? Easy, delicious stovetop.
Stovetop's our favorite, we really crave it. It goes with everything just right. Let's make it stovetop tonight.
When I give my family medicine, I like to know how much I'm giving. But when we used a squeeze spray to relieve sinus congestion, we were never sure. So we switched to 12-hour Nostrilla. It gives an exact amount every time.
Nostrilla with the metered pump gives a measured dose every time. Squeeze sprays don't.
I can breathe again.
What a relief.
Get 12-hour Nostrilla or 4-hour Nostril with the metered pump. It's the relief you need, the exact measured dose you want.
You got to understand some of the strange cues I get. Now, I just got one that said, time for Willard with the weather. He's under a tree with some sheep, something about a haircut. Look at this, will you? Mr. Scott, you look very bizarre.
Hello, mate. I want you to know we got all the sheep. They're going to go to sheep this year in here. This is what you got to say this evening, right?
Right, that's right.
They understand me. That's what worries me. These are the Conlon brothers. They're the fastest sheep shearers in the entire nation of Australia. And the toughest thing they have ever done in their life, they're about to do right now. You ready, gang?
Right.
Okay. Kookaburra sits in the old gum tree. Merry, merry king of the losh is he. Laugh, Kookaburra, laugh, Kookaburra, laugh.
What the gay life you...
Okay, now these guys, not only do they sing, but they also shear sheep. And when I saw the Sundowners a few years back, one of the great movies, Robert Mitchum, I always was impressed. Now, you guys are the fastest in the business. How long will it take you to shear these sheep?
I haven't had much of a warm-up today, probably a couple of minutes.
Okay, John, it does not hurt the sheep. It's a recyclable product. It does not, it's all...
No, they can't feel it at all. We feel a bit in our backs, but the sheep can't feel it, no.
And you, how long does it take you? About?
I think I'll do mine faster, Mark, a bit over a minute.
Okay, and the fact also is that sometimes it's about 100 degrees when they do it. I'll get out of the way. Let me move out of here. Go get your sheep. Go get your thing. I'll see if I can get the microphone cable out of the way. Let me pardon my back and my front. This is one of the great acts of all times. Now, they've already understand it was about 90 degrees here today in Perth. Now, 90 degrees, of course, Fahrenheit, about 35 degrees Celsius. So these sheep are going to have their coats removed. Now, we'll give us a shot here. Understand it. If anybody watching it thinks, never seen this, it does not hurt the sheep at all. These are modern clippers. They're nice and sharp. And these fellas know their business.
He told you that. The sheep tell you that, did it?
That's what it says in the manual. They're going to be so nice and cool when it finishes here because it's much cooler. Look, he's got a crew cut coming off the side now. There you go.
Up the neck.
Up the neck.
Blind butt.
Right over the ears.
Leave the ear on.
Never even, not a nick. And this beautiful wool will go, of course, to make jackets and sweaters and coats. Okay. Here we go. They're getting it all done, and babies, they're very happy now. They're going to be nice and cool. I'm going to take them out to dinner. Get them a couple of little John Dory. They love John Dory and Steinlager. They like New Zealand beer. They said they want something different this time. Let's check the weather act for while the sheep are being sheared and find out exactly what's happening back home before my job is sheared right off at the end. We have a beautiful day in most of the country except for some storms out west. Winter continues. Storm watches and winter travelers advisories in effect in the Cascades, the northern Sierras, and around Lake Tahoe for 12 inches of snow. Also some heavy rain from San Francisco north to Seattle. Also rain in the East Coast from the mid-Atlantic states, southern New Jersey, all the way down to the southeast Tallahassee back into parts of Lake Charles, Louisiana. Warm weather, I mean warm weather continues. 60, 65 degrees in Denver and Omaha and Des Moines. Okay, now the wool is all gathered up here. They're going to keep doing their act here because they're trying to make a hat for me. Can you do me get some on the side over here, will you? Just take a little bit off the top. And now back to my friend Brian Gumbel. Oh, here's what's happening in your world this morning.
The Bay Area is in for rain and wind this morning. The conditions tapering off this evening, but they're expecting heavy snow in the Sierra tonight.
Clean as a whistle, boy. I mean, 35 sheep, can't be wrong. Now back to Bryant over in the stall.
They cut off part of your shirt, too. I know he bought it. He told Mark, go get the biggest one they got and stretch it. New Yorkers have come to think of our next guest as one of their own, but syndicated cartoonist Paul Rigby still calls this part of the world home, and that is Perth. It was here back in 1951 that he helped found a select group called the Limp Fallers. Now, if you don't know what that means, then watch this.
I'm drinking my
Now, if this reminds you of Monty Python antics, it should, for it was the limb fallers who inspired John Cleese to create the character.
So make it one for my baby, and one more for the road, for the long, long.
And Paul Rigby has joined us out here right now. Good seeing you, Paul. Thank you very much. What is a limb faller?
Well, I really shouldn't be here, Brian, because we formed the World Limb Fallers Association back in '51, as you said, and it came into being as a non-profit anti-publicity.
Oh, so I shouldn't even talk about it?
We really shouldn't be here talking about it.
Who qualifies?
Well, it started out in very humble beginnings. We decided that people spend something like 30% of their life in a horizontal position for some reason or other. And we just designed more interesting ways to get to that position. Anybody qualifies, but you do have to do an initiation ceremony. In the bush here today, I think we have quite a lot of our previous world champions. We have our world championship every year, and you get points for surprising people with strange, spontaneous falls. No levity is allowed. It's a deadly serious operation.
I understand.
Whimsical smiles. Whimsical smiles lose points. So does loss of blood, really. So we have our orthopedic surgeon on hand all the time, too.
I see some of your buddies around here in Kings Park, too. Yeah,
yes, they are.
Yeah, we just saw them do that. Let's talk about another championship going on. You have you've been at every cup competition now since '62 that Australia's entered, right?
I've been sort of part of the syndicate.
Yeah. How disappointed are you in what's going on right now?
Well, you know, all those years up at Newport, I met a lot of wonderful people, and I don't mind if it goes back to Newport for a couple of years, but we've still got tomorrow or the next day to see what's going to happen.
It's not Newport, it's heading up for San Diego.
But, you know, we might be able to convince Dennis to take it back to Newport. He owes them something.
I got one final question. You call this part of the world home, and yet you live in New York now. How come?
Well, what I'm trying to do is to eventually do 5 months of the year in New York, 5 in Perth, and a couple in Europe. Nothing wrong with that, is there?
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. Paul Rigby, it's good seeing you.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for being at the party last night, too. You had a good time. We'll be back in just a moment, right after this. Did you hurt yourself?
Hi, folks. Danny Thomas here. The smoking stain your dentures, then clean them with Smoker's Polydent. Super strength Smoker's Polydent gets tough tobacco stains super clean. The super strength soak for people who smoke.
Excuse me. Can I help you?
I'm not sure. I'm looking for the perfect TV. A 27-inch with black matrix, 110-degree angle of deflection, computer-accurate digital access tuning, 178 channels, built-in stereo decoder, and it's got to have infrared remote control that runs the TV, cable, and VCR, even if they're different brands. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. You want a Magnavox.
The perfect picture, the perfect remote. Nobody puts it together like Magnavox.
Introducing Metaprin when your body hasn't got time for the pain.
I haven't got time for the pain. No, I haven't got time for the pain anymore.
Metaprin has ibuprofen, the prescription ingredient recommended by doctors 2-to-1 over aspirin for body pain, including minor arthritis pain. And it's gentler to your stomach than aspirin.
I haven't got time for the pain.
When your body hasn't got time for the pain, new Metaprin from the makers of Tylenol products.
Something good is coming up when you get the Bisquick down.
Yeah, fluffy Bisquick pancakes. Why keep your family waiting another day?
Get the Bisquick down. Bisquick!
The Challenger Series to win the America's Cup from Australia brought entries from 6 countries this year and reporters from 34 countries. And all 3,000 of them must have known Aaron Goodlett. Aaron is a 7th grader. He lives in Fremantle, and he delivers papers there for the Daily News. In fact, he already has delivered the papers today. He didn't take the day off just to be on TV. But Aaron didn't make his reputation as a paper boy. No, he made it as an investigative reporter. Now it can be revealed what mysteries lie shrouded in top secret security, the keels underneath the boats of the 12 meters. This is what Aaron has done. Did you really go, did you find this out for sure? You just made this up?
Made it up.
Oh, I'm disappointed. This is the Italian boat. Will you just tell us about your pictures?
Well, it's something to do with Italy that'll make a landmark so that it'll be to do with Italy, and I'll be surprised if it is revealed like that.
The Leaning Tower of Power keel. Italy had, what, 2 boats?
Yeah.
All right, and this was the keel on the other one. What's that one?
Italia pizzas.
Pizza power. A pizza power. Oh, let me guess. The Eiffel Tower power.
Yep.
The Heart of America.
It's my favorite one.
This is your favorite? How come?
Oh, just the way it looks.
Was it your favorite boat?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were from Chicago. Have you ever been to Chicago?
No.
You want to go?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I think they'd like to have you. You could deliver papers for the Daily News. Stars and Stripes keel. This is the winning keel. The stars go pretty fast, don't they?
Yep, shooting ones.
Yeah. And finally, whoops, nope, that's French kiss. Isn't that mwah? Now, this is Kookaburra. Is that what a kookaburra really looks like?
Yep, something like that. Not exactly.
How come he doesn't go fast enough?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Not using his wings, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, he's flying in the right direction. That's pretty good, Aaron. What do you want to be when you grow up?
An architect or a naval architect, either one. I like designing things.
Yeah, well, you're on your way. It's going to be pretty lonely when 3,000 reporters go home after covering the America's Cup, isn't it?
Yeah, because a lot of them really boosted my roundup. I mean, that's what made a lot of my sales.
Oh, wait a minute. I said it's going to be pretty lonely. And you're talking about selling papers? He's a businessman, ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Goodlet. You've never been to America at all. Would you like to come someday?
Oh, I'd really like to see all the sights around America.
Other than Chicago, what would you like to see most in America?
I'd like to go to Disney World and SeaWorld in Florida and just all the places like that.
A lot of American kids would like to go to those places, too. Do you think American kids and Australian kids would like each other pretty much?
Yeah, I don't think there'd be any difficult in friendship because we do the same sort of things.
Except for cricket.
Yeah.
You'd have to teach them how to play cricket.
Yep, I know how to play baseball.
Right, right. Well, Aaron Goodlet, it's been a pleasure meeting you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. And we'll be back after station break.
This week, the shocking discovery.
You've been following me. You've been spying on me. Now I want to know why.
The shattering truth.
I'm your sister.
Days of Our Lives.
In 1953, frozen dinners were introduced. And for over 25 years, they didn't get much better. Until now. Introducing Dinner Supreme from Stouffer's. 8 completely delicious new dinners, like chicken Florentine, beef teriyaki, and flounder in red pepper sauce. New Dinner Supreme from Stouffer's. The first frozen dinners worth getting excited about in over 25 years.
A resignation at the CIA, the story at 11:30.
As the sun sets here in Perth, we do note that writers often tell a truth about a place that historians overlook. In Western Australia, the literary legacy is relatively new here. A handful of writers is only now defining the unique quality of life here along the Indian Ocean. And among them is an Englishwoman, Elizabeth Jolly. Her novels have been described as, quote, elegant art of the first quality and, quote, deliciously funny. Mrs. Jolly and her husband came here from England some 30 years ago, and she takes us now on a personal journey through a very special landscape.
I suppose it is the largeness and its beauty. It really is fantastically beautiful in the light and shade. Quite a lot of people, Australians and other people who have come here, have a great wish to conquer the land and clear it and burn it all off and get down all the trees. And in fact, on our own little piece of land, we're lucky to have the big trees. Most of the places around here haven't any big trees left. I think that because people were farming the land to make it useful, they did clear it. And I can see the point of that. Country women are very resourceful and they get up very early and they really work hard. I found myself ashamed of my lazy life when I went out there to different places. The wildflowers, when they come, are really spectacular. Very deep blue, Leschenauter, lovely blue. Then there's a purpley blue for the hovea, which is like a pea flower that climbs up and grows over things. And the grass tree, or black boy, which is all over our place, which a lot of people don't like, is very pretty when the sun shines and the little spikes of it shiver a little bit. And the flowers are a sort of reward. You forget about them, and then suddenly they start to come. Well, of course, in England and Scotland, where we lived for 10 years before we came here, if you went swimming, you could only stay in the water for a minute or two before your bones froze. But here, I thought it was so idyllic, and I took the children down there, and of course, the first thing they did was to throw off their clothes and rush into the water. And a man going by called out and said, "You must be from England." And I said, "Yes, yes, we are." And he said, "Oh, no Australian would go in the water on a day like this." I do think of myself as being West Australian, and I will live here always. I won't go back to England to live. I will stay here.
We're glad Elizabeth Jolly has taken some time out of her day to join us up here, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Have you thought much about how much Western Australia has changed you as a writer?
I suppose it must have done. I couldn't remain the same person after traveling and living here, I think.
Is there such a thing as a Western Australian personality? I mean, you kind of define the personality of the land there, but not the people.
I don't think you can generalize about a people, and Western Australia is very full of all kinds of people, as indeed the United States is too, I think. Yeah.
You heard me note at the top that this is not a literary center, and not regarded as a literary center. Is that because the area hasn't spawned great writers, or because the place is so isolated that they don't get much attention?
Well, there is an isolation, but I think that it's gradually, the distances are gradually getting less between us and the rest of Australia, and Western Australia and the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever see yourself returning to your native England?
Well, I have been back just for visits, but I would never go back there to live.
Why? What is it about this place that has captured your heart more than any other?
Well, I suppose I've been able to do things here that I like doing very much, like having the little fruit farm and various things like that, and traveling very easily about the country and the ocean. And I just have become very fond of the place.
Do you still feel like a foreigner who's come to stay, or do you feel like a native now?
Well, I think that I might feel like a foreigner everywhere that I go, in some respects, and in other respects I feel very much at home.
Well, Elizabeth Jolly, we thank you very much, not only for your works and for that little mini tour, but for coming and doing honor to our show. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to come back in just a moment. We're going to have some music and some final thoughts for our first day from Perth, right after these messages.
New Charmin Free, it's got plenty of nothing. 0 dyes, 0 inks, 0 perfumes. New Charmin Free.
Squeezable softness, but no dyes, inks, or perfumes.
Tomorrow morning, don't just pour yourself a glass of orange juice.
Pour yourself a better body.
Pour yourself new Citrus Hill Plus Calcium. It starts with juice squeezed from the heart of the orange. But unlike regular orange juice, it's got bone-building calcium you and your family need. Ounce for ounce, as much as in milk. So,
Pour yourself a better body. Pour yourself.
new Citrus Hill Plus Calcium, also available in grapefruit.
Pour yourself a better body.
You know what bugs me? This bugs me. Greasy dishes bug me. So I got Dawn. No fancy smell like lemon or lime. Dawn just takes grease out of your way. Even cold burger grease. Dawn makes grease fall apart, lose its grip. So my greasiest pan is a wipe away from this. See no grease, feel no grease, hear no grease. Dawn takes grease out of your way. And that's fine, because I've got better things to do.
I know you're saying, there's old Dean, and he's going to talk about sausage again. Wrong. I'm going to talk about chicken, I'm going to talk about steak, and I'm going to talk about biscuits. Now, you like Jimmy Dean sausage biscuits, right? So we took a tender piece of steak and a nice southern fried piece of chicken, and we put that in a biscuit. It's good for breakfast in the morning or a late night snack or any time in between. Jimmy Dean chicken biscuit, Jimmy Dean steak biscuits. You ought to know about the sausage.
What do you think as we close down shop for our first day? We miss much?
Aaron Goodlet turned and he says, "Do you have places like this in America?"
Oh,
I said, "Aaron, there are very few places like this in the world."
Yeah, there are. It's been a nice day here, and I see the roulettes are coming into view right there. They, in case you missed it a little bit earlier, they honored us a little bit earlier with a flyby. This is their second. Tomorrow, we're going to change our location a little bit. We're going to head up the road a piece up to Fremantle, where we will be joined, as you heard earlier, by Tom Whidden. We'll talk a little bit about the America's Cup final going on there. We'll also do a little bit of a story on the immigrant heritage of this nation. We'll take you on a trip to Kalgoorlie, where they're reawakening the gold rush times. We're going to take a look at the state of women in Australia.
There's good parts and there's bad parts.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
More good than bad?
Well, I don't live here.
No. We're also going to talk about gambling here on the west coast of Australia, where, yes, it is legal, and yes, I have seen the inside of the casino, and have I got some stories to tell you. And we'll also talk to you about one of the biggest civil wars going on in this part of the country, and that is the beer wars. Suds is very serious business out here. We'll talk about all that tomorrow from Fremantle. But now we're going to take a hike, right? We're getting off the air. And
take a waltz.
To take us off the air is the Mucky Duck Bush Band with an Australian classic. We'll see you tomorrow.
Once a jolly swagman camped by a billabong under the shade of the coolabah tree, and he sang as he sat and watched his billy boiling. Come a waltzing Matilda with me, waltzing Matilda, Matilda, me darling. Do come a waltzing Matilda with me, waltzing Matilda, leading a water bag. Do come a waltzing Matilda with me. A long time the jumbuck and drank from the billabong. Up jumped the swagman and grabbed him with glee, and he sung as he shoved that jumbuck in his pocket bag. Waltzing Matilda with me, waltzing Matilda, Matilda, me darling. Do come a waltzing Matilda with me, waltzing Matilda, leading a water bag. Waltzing Matilda with me. A long time the squatter mounted on his thoroughbred. Down came the troopers at 1, 2, 3. Whose is the jumbuck that you